Welcome to the Heart of Money podcast, where we discuss the personal and emotional elements of money and the impact that money has on every area of your life. I'm Austin Black, a personal finance coach that helps couples overcome their fear and frustration of financial management so they can take complete control of their money. What started as a desire to learn the fundamentals of money management has turned into a passion for helping couples work together to achieve financial success and strengthen their relationship with each other. Whether you're looking for the best strategies to manage your money as a couple, or you're tired of struggling to gain traction and want to overcome the fear and frustration associated with finances, I'm here to help, and this show is for you. Ready to learn more? Then let's talk about the heart of money. Well, most people think that in order to become debt-free and have financial security, you have to either make a lot of money or have a very restrictive lifestyle. And folks, I'm here to tell you that neither one of those is true. In fact, I have a training that's going to walk you through the financial freedom blueprint of how to accomplish your goal of being debt-free and having financial security without the need for a huge income or restrictive lifestyle. I'm only offering this training once a month live, so be sure and check it out for my next class so you can come learn the secrets, the tools of the trade, the strategies that I teach clients on how to get on the same page with their spouse, create a plan for their money, and accomplish their financial goals by managing their behavior. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I cannot wait to have you at the next class. So head on over to freedommoneycoach.com/training. You can sign up for free and join me for my next live masterclass on the financial freedom blueprint. That's freedommoneycoach.com/training. I'll see you guys next month. Hey folks, welcome back to the Heart of Money, episode 86. I'm your host, Austin Black, joined by my good friend, fellow podcaster, the one, the only, always here for a good time, Mr. Bob Wessler. How are you this evening, Bob?
I'm good, and you and I both are glad that there's only one of me. So, yeah, that's a good place to start, and from there, I let you roll on. So,
Yeah.
as long as you can hear me, I've got to make sure that I'm close enough.
I think I can hear you. The better question is, can I understand you?
No.
That is the defining factor.
I can either look good or I can sound good, but I can't do both.
Well, being as this is mainly audio, I'll take the questionable appearance over the, or I guess I'll take the high quality audio over the questionable appearance.
Fantastic. I do have a voice for, I'm sorry, I have a face for radio, so.
You got a face for radio, and I got all of it.
That's right. Up close and personal, but darn it, I sound good with this popper cover that we got going on, so.
Well, Bob, there's one thing when it comes to money that you're either really good at or you're really bad at. Actually, there's probably more than one thing. But the one thing we're going to talk about tonight is savings. And I just made about half of our audience go, "Oh crap," and the other half go, "Oh goody," because that's really kind of how it splits the audience. It seems like either we really like savings or we have a really hard time with savings. What does that kind of compare to what you've experienced?
Or that one half is now elbowing rather hard in the ribs to the other half saying, ooh, you need to listen to this. Or they're sending this as a share through email or text message or something going, hey, you really need to hear what Austin's going to say this evening. So, yeah, your question about saving, either you're really good or really bad, there are people that they just can't get to it. So maybe they fall in the category of not good at saving just because they don't.
Yeah. And I like everything we talk about, we could probably spend 4 or 5 episodes on this one topic and do a really deep dive. But there's one thing that has jumped out to me here in the last few months, as you and I have talked, as I've talked to other clients and prospects, and that is around why do we save? Because, like we mentioned before, it can be really hard or it can be really easy. But there's also there's got to be some strategy behind it because kind of the way that this breaks down in my mind And I'm curious what you think, because we could look at this. I'm thinking like there's like three different points and angles that are immediately coming to mind on this topic from this conversation. So number one, we had that split audience, and the people who aren't good at saving, they just aren't naturally inclined to that. Probably they have a hard time with whether it's accountability or just managing their money, or being able to say no, or just knowing what to say yes to so that they can say no. There's a multitude of variances that go into that. I think on the other side of it, the ones that do typically are very good about it, right? They are people who know the importance of saving, or just of having money, of being secure, of being conscious about that. But in that camp, even, I think you can have a lot of separation, and that's kind of where I want to go with this conversation. So, for those of you listening, we're not going to talk about the people that aren't good at saving, because that's for a whole nother discussion, a whole nother episode there, I think. But the one that I kind of want to lean into is the people that do save, um, which kind of brings up the second point that I've got in my mind is it's good to save, but do you do it at your own detriment sometimes?
Mm. So you stayed away from calling those that aren't very good at saving. You just didn't flat out call them free spirits, because they tend to be free spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And you were really nice in not saying that those that are savers tend to be OCD/anal retentive about saving. So you have the opposite ends of the spectrum, and if you're going to focus on the savers, I think you've got some spectrum there in the savers too,
Absolutely.
because you have those that are OCD about it, that the pennies matter, and by golly, you're not spending that, you're saving that. And you have the others that are like, I'm saving what I can, where I can, when I can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that might be the angle you're going with, that we need to look at the spectrum of savers and not just the diehards that, or maybe that's what it is we need to get the diehards away from just penny pinching and off the rice and beans strategy to actually using that money or having a focus for why they're saving other than I'm saving.
Yeah. And this original idea came about because I've talked to a few folks that grew up with the concept of you needed to save money. Period. You need to save as much money as you could. Period. But to what extent, for what purpose, at what time, for how long, and to get how much? And those are all unanswered questions. And in my mind, there's a difference between saving for the sake of saving and saving for the sake of creating a better future for yourself. And that's kind of where I had this distinction, like you said, in that spectrum of people that will save every single little dime and penny, and it is they they spend their life focused on save, 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 for what in purpose. And then you have the other people that try when they can, they know they need to, and they attempt it. It's not their number one focus, but they're cautious of and aware of it. And then you got there in the middle of folks who are intentional and focused and rational and have goals, and they live, but they also say, and they're very conscious of their money and what they do with it. So that's kind of where my head has been on this whole conversation is saving good no matter what? Is it always a good decision? Can it have negative impact? Why should you save? And how can savings actually be a problem with the right perspective, or with the wrong perspective rather?
Mm. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and have that B word cross my lips. Are all these savers that you're talking about the penny pinchers to the penny grabbers to I got a penny and I'm going to keep it? Are they all on some sort of budget, or do you have people that are pinching every penny and their thought process is, I need to save it, but they're not really budgeting how much they're saving.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, in the people that I have personally dealt with and worked with, they're not to that extreme of the spectrum of we are going to save literally the pennies on our dresser for a rainy day. It's more of the general concept of if we have money that we're not spending, we need to save it. Just to save it, to have money, because if we don't have money, we don't have money. That's more the thought process, the mentality. But there comes a point where whether you are on a budget or not, from a budgetary standpoint, you can have a good approach at we just need to be very conscious of saving as much as we can, whether it's 5 pennies or $500 a month, whatever that looks like. On the flip side, though, you can also have the approach of I need to save at any and all cost.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily keeping track of 5 pennies or 500s. I just need to save as much as I can.
That's not saving.
Yeah, exactly. It's a hoard. Is
Yeah,
what it is.
It's hoarding.
Yeah,
it is a completely separate, and let's call it what it is. It's the concern that you're not going to have enough when you need enough.
exactly.
So you're hoarding.
Yep. And that's a very unhealthy savings perspective, in my opinion.
Not healthy. It let me go so far to say is it's a mental condition that needs some discussion beyond a budget or what you're putting away. And really what I think you're trying to hit home on is why are you doing it?
Exactly. Yeah, and I, fortunately, I have not been in the spot of personally experiencing this level. I've always been very conscious, very intentional of I need to save for something, right? Whether that is saving to have an emergency fund, saving for a vehicle, saving to, buy something, even just saving for the heck of having something to fall back on outside of emergency. There are other times when you are saving for the sake of saving money because you don't know what's coming next.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where you can get into trouble. I think back to a conversation that I had a few months ago. And growing up, this person had the mentality that you needed to save because that's what you did.
Mm-hmm.
And that mentality caused them to have a scarcity mindset no matter how much money they had, because how much is enough? And what is the point and the purpose of saving money if you don't know what your end goal actually is? If it's just to save, you're never going to have enough.
That's right. And I think there's a process that we go through growing up, some of us, that it's you save for a rainy day, but there has to be a reason. That rainy day has a purpose. And I think one of those things is, as we talk about budgeting, if you're saving just to save, you need to call it something. You need to have something that it's going to. And it needs to be a percentage more so than it needs to be an amount.
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody that saves $5 on $500 is in a much different place than somebody who's saving $5 on $15.
Right. 100%.
So somebody saving $5 on 500 probably needs to save some more. Somebody saving $5 on 15, 33% in essence of what they've got
Mm-hmm.
is not healthy. And let's say that's 5,000 on 15,000 or something different other than just the basic 5 to 15 principle, but the 33% of it. And I want to go towards the 80-10-10 rule.
Mm-hmm.
you live off 80, you give 10, and you save 10. Really, it's looking at how much you are saving and putting it in perspective. If you're starting off and you have nothing, yeah, you want to save, but you still need to put it in perspective of what your overall picture is. And it's a good idea to categorize it versus just putting money back, because if your whole goal is to see how big that nest egg can get, or whatever that savings pot is, what's the real point?
Exactly, yeah. It always intrigues me how our mindset around money is crafted very early on in life.
Mm-hmm.
And how much control we have over that mindset that we get. I feel like a lot of times we base our our philosophies, our feelings, our actions, and our reactions around how did we grow up? What were we taught, either directly or indirectly? What do we see our parents do? How do we experience money in our life from an early age? When I say early, I mean, let's say, middle school through college, the times when money had more of an impact upon us personally based upon what our parents did or what our family did or what we were able to do. Maybe if we worked and hadn't had money for something, those early years of our life have a tremendous impact on our perspective, our mindset, how we think and react to, handle, talk about, communicate about everything around money. And I don't think we give that enough credit, enough realization and awareness. And a lot of the negative connotations and consequences that we experience for money come from bad experiences during that time frame, or maybe we were taught the wrong way, or we just
Mm-hmm.
had instances where we got burned, or we there was something that happened
Yeah.
that caused us to have a negative response. But then you flip that around, and honestly, I would estimate, to say this based on my own personal experience, that once you kind of hit your mid 20s, you are capable of crafting your own mindset that's not hinged around how you grew up, that's not based upon your previous life experiences, because you kind of get to create your own experience at that point and dictate, how do I want to think about money based upon where I want to be, my lifestyle, my goals. You're kind of starting your own future at that point, and you have the full control to dictate then how you do want to respond, and you have control over that. And I think that is a very important dynamic from both sides of life for people to realize when they look at this savings discussion, because a lot of people say, well, that's just how I grew up, and that's just how I am, and that's just the way that it is. And other people go, I didn't do good growing up, but I want to do good now.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, there's both of those has some validity to them.
Yeah. And from your experience, mid-20s, I think, is a good starting point. But
Mm-hmm.
discussions we've had in the past that everybody's on their own, in their own space in the continuum, I would say that for some, that's probably late teens. For others, that's early 30s. And
Mm-hmm.
it's based on life experiences, education, and the like. Um, I also think that in your mid 20s, by the time you get to your early 30s, there are things you probably have to unlearn
Right.
because you didn't do it right.
Mm-hmm.
Or you were early on in the curve and you had a good foundation and you've been doing it right since your late teens. Um, I think that the key for anybody listening is start where you're at,
Mm-hmm.
examine your motives. And if we're speaking specifically to these savers, are you a healthy saver? Are you looking at percentages? Are you an unhealthy hoarder to where you're just taking every dime, penny, nickel, quarter slug that might look like a dime or a quarter. Is there anything besides a quarter slug?
Are you talking about those parking lot peanuts or parking lot pennies?
Yes, yes. If that's what you want to call them. I actually saw one the other day. I was like, I didn't know that these things were still around. But yeah, just what is your motive for saving? Do you have a goal for saving? And I think what's true for any of us and all of us is there could be a situation in our lives where we don't have enough. But if you are in a position that you are setting back some of what you're making on a regular basis, just because you don't have it now doesn't mean you won't have it later. Mm-hmm. I've seen a couple of situations where people get started where they're saving and they get wiped out by something dumb. Not their fault, mm-hmm. but it's a consequence or something that act of God, if you will. But they have some sort of financial savings that they can take from that they wouldn't have had they not started earlier. Or, on the other hand, they've got something to start over again because they've got the process down.
Yep.
You're always going to have a situation that either you have enough or you don't, and you have to figure out how to move forward with it. So for those that are listening, they're saying, I'm never going to have enough. That's true. But you don't know what that is that you're not going to have enough for. And it could be that it never happens.
And Bob, I would even argue so much as to say that if that is your focus of how much am I going to have, you're focused on the wrong thing.
Absolutely.
Because the focus is not how much do I have, is what am I doing with what I have?
Yep.
Am I taking care of myself and my family? Am I taking care of my four walls? Am I being conscientious with what I have? Because if you are, you will have enough for what comes. And if it's not enough, you will know how to get more when the time comes. I feel like the people that center their focus around save, because I don't know when, what, if, and how much, they're not taking care of what's in front of them as efficiently because they're so narrowly focused on that hoarding aspect and the scarcity and the fear that they, even if they've got $1 million in the bank, they still aren't satisfied, or I should say, they aren't comfortable with where they are financially because all they can think about is, well, I need 2 million, or I need 3 million, or I need 5 million, because how much is enough? And no one can answer that question for someone else. It's a very, I always get confused if it's subjective or objective, but that's a very personal question that only you can answer for yourself.
And I want to go on a sidebar here for a second with what you're saying about being smart with your money. Somebody that's got $1 million in the bank, do not sit on $1 million in a savings account making 0.05% interest. You're making nothing. If you've got $200 in the bank,
you're paying the bank to keep that money for
you. Oh my gosh. You're not being smart with what you've got. You're not being a good steward of what you have. Mm-hmm. Right now, with interest rates somewhere around 4% plus in some savings accounts, make your money do something for you. That's the whole point of being smart with money, is having your money work for you. Just sitting it somewhere so you're comfortable that you can take whatever amount you need, when it's not making anything, you're losing money on it, especially in our current economy. And the fact that you can go out and get 4% plus without having to tie your money up anywhere. Savings accounts are doing just as well as CDs.
Yep.
If not better in some cases. But yeah, don't sit on a nothing savings account at a big bank when you could be making a decent amount of change by having that money sit somewhere else while you're waiting for that rainy day to happen.
And then I'm gonna jump around to the other side of that conversation too, because that's what we do here, and it's a lot of fun. Let's say that you don't have $1 million in the bank. Most of us don't at this point in our life. That's or for some of us that's obviously a goal, not necessarily for everybody. But let's say that you're at the $1,000 in the bank standpoint, and you want to get to 10,000, and then 50,000, and then 100,000, and maybe someday, 40 years from now, you can, without actually realizing it, be at that $1 million mark. But you're just starting out. In that standpoint, you kind of are in that we need to save for the sake of saving mentality because you don't have enough. That's not enough for anyone. So if you're at that point, and Bobby, you and I both, we teach the baby steps. That's the very, very first thing that we typically do is make sure you have $1,000 in the bank, get your debt paid off, and then rack up that emergency fund. So if you're at that point, you better get to saving fast for the sake of saving money so you don't wind up in a bad spot. However, as that savings builds, the focus starts to shift from we're saving for the sake of saving to we are saving to protect ourselves. We have a dollar amount in mind, or as you mentioned earlier, a percentage in mind of what we want to reach. We have goals of things that we want to save up for, places that we want to be and that we want to go. And you begin to set targets and milestones around your savings. And by doing that, the end result is you do end up with a substantial amount of cash in a savings account or bank account or investment fund or wherever you end up putting that money. So we're going to come at this topic from all different angles because I think all different angles are important. And it really depends upon where you are. So I don't want to lose people out there that are in that I need to save to have money, period. That's a valid point, but you can't stay there. And I think that's really at the core of what we want to, are talking about tonight is that's not the end all be all. But for some of you, that is where you're beginning, and that's perfectly fine. That's a valid place to be starting.
Yeah. And as I spoke about percentage, I'm not talking about a percentage of net worth per se.
Right.
I'm saying that you hold back 10% plus minus of what you bring home each time. You're doing a bucket. You're pulling that money, setting aside, you're doing that first and living off the other 80%. Mm-hmm. What that does for you, hey, guess what? The government actually got a good idea and said, hey, we need to start getting people in jobs to automatically set up retirement accounts. So what happens? That money goes straight to a retirement account. You don't even think about it. Yeah. You have to opt out of it rather than opt into it. Because when you're in late teens, early 20s, your first job, and you get a decent paycheck, are you thinking about retirement? Not really. But the government now says, we're going to say that you need to opt out rather than opt in as a little bit of friction to get people to do it. Mm-hmm. This, going back to the 80-10-10, if you set aside 10% every paycheck, automatically, it's a bucket. That 10% grows over time to where you have money that you don't even realize how much is in there unless you're like those savers that are keeping an eye on it every week, paycheck, month, quarter, whatever it is. Yeah, it doesn't move much every day unless you got quite a bit in there.
They're still looking.
They're still looking. It's not going to watch pot never boils. But your idea is that you're automatically socking it away at a given percentage so you don't have to think about it. Mm-hmm. So it grows over time. Compound interest, something that I was taught from an early age but didn't catch on until way too late. The more you put in earlier and the more you put in on a regular basis, the more that money grows over time. especially at 4% versus 0.05%.
Right.
But you got to do it, and you let it go. You don't look at it, even though you have a tendency to. That, it is a good feeling to know you have money in the bank or in a savings account if you need it. And that's the great thing with buckets is that you set it aside. You've got somewhere to pull it from when you need it.
Mm-hmm.
But it really doesn't do you a whole lot of good to either 0 to 60 cold turkey type process of I've never done it before. You need to do something just to get started.
Yep.
Because you'll never get to the larger amount. And you don't need to sock every nickel, dime, slug, whatever you decided to call the penny pincher, penny plug pincher, whatever.
Parking lot penny.
Parking lot penny. Glad you called it a penny. That you don't have to do that. It's not healthy. It's not good for you. Set some aside every check or from however you're getting paid. That's how people become millionaires is they do it automatically. They do it over time, and it takes time and it takes patience.
Yep. I think we're going to have to talk more about this in other episodes because we did not talk about the if you aren't saving, you should. I mean, you kind of did a little bit here in the last few minutes. I do think that that's something that we need to kind of bring to the table because that's a challenging state to start if you're not in, but there's obviously benefit to it. So we might bring that back to the conversation here in the near future. And we could keep talking even about just the savings elements too. But the one thing that I really want to impart to people tonight is savings is a good thing if it's done in a healthy manner, if it's done in an intentional, focused plan and approach with reason and purpose behind it. Saving because that's what you do, and saving to the detriment of your other lifestyle, family members, even your own financial health is not wise, is not smart. There's a balance, just like anything with money. There's a balance of sometimes you need to be aggressive, sometimes you need to back off because life happens and you need to be able to spend money. But no matter where you're at, being conscious of the fact that saving done the right way creates abundance. Savings done the wrong way creates more scarcity, which doesn't make sense, but it's the truth. If you save for the sake of saving, you're always going to feel like you don't have enough. If you save for the sake of achieving goals, creating protection for yourself, being intentional with your money management, you will create an abundance that you can't even begin to imagine because you're focused on the future, not what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you've listened to Austin's monologue for the last 2 or 3 minutes, you realize that what he's basically said is that I've derailed him from all the things that he really wanted to talk about this evening, and I went on half a dozen different tangents that got into more of the nuts and bolts of what he wanted to talk about. So we have gone to the high level, and if we have created enough content to discuss for the next 6 months, if we really want to drill down into it, while me getting on my soapbox and Austin going, I'm still the host of this show, dang it. And that nervous laugh right there tells you that I'm speaking truth. Anyway, and I'm just being a little bit ornery at the same time because it's been a long day. But truly, I think we've touched on quite a bit. And yes, we have, for the most part, kept it to a higher level. And there is so much more we could go into. I hope that our listeners have gotten something good out of what Austin said and fast forwarded through my parts as best they could. But, maybe
so hard. You thought that was my job.
Yeah, that's right. Alvin Simon Theodore. maybe we want to open this up to our listeners to send in comments on what they want to know about saving, or what their hangups have been on saving,
Mm-hmm.
or what they just don't like about saving, i.e., they don't have money to spend on other things, but they'll have money to spend on other things later if they save. So,
And I just thought of another idea for us to talk about from the saving standpoint. So we might just be building a saving series on the fly here. That might be what comes out of this, because there's the wheels are turning, and I think even you and I could add more to our personal stories around savings from the standpoint of we both are good, but we also both have some challenges when it comes to savings that I think other people can learn from.
yeah, if you really want to get into the nitty gritty and how we save and what we save, and the internal struggles that we have on how much and where and all that, plus the fact that we're both married and have, significant others, if I can say the words right, that have heavily input on, we're even going so far as to say,
you're saying this very methodically.
I am. I'm going to the point that we probably will have not a series, but at least
Single
one
series?
podcast with all four or multiple viewpoints beyond the two of us that are probably smarter than we are. This is where
Probably.
you chime in that yes, they are smarter, just to save face for you. But yeah,
my wife is brilliant and
Yeah.
beautiful.
And this is where my wife hits me and says, "Why can't you say that about me? Because I like listening to Austin." Yeah, I said, "Yeah, but you're married to me, and you're welcome." So
Her choosing.
yeah, that made one of us. No, I'm kidding.
I got nothing after that.
That's right. That's right. After that tangent, just to say that we will now have a series on savings that could hit over the next year at some point.
Yep.
As we have barely skimmed the surface of all that there is to savings. And here you only thought it was 10% of your income. So much more to dive into.
Absolutely. And we will be bringing the wives on in the very near future. So, Kate and Laura, get ready. You're coming.
I was just joking. No.
I've got other episodes already planned now that you don't know about.
Oh, gosh.
And Kate's going to have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, she is. I'm pretty sure of.
I'm going to show up. Actually, they were your ideas that I just kind of made into plausible episodes.
That's right. So, you're the host. They were your ideas. I was just here for fodder.
I've got to give you some credit.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. That's all you're going to get.
But I know. I still have a face for radio. So here I am.
Well, folks, I'm glad that we got back around to our comic reality after a sophisticated and deep dive of discussion and the high level elements of savings, why it's important, why you should do it, why you shouldn't do it. And stay tuned for more in the weeks to come. Any final thoughts, Bob?
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I am excited and scared at the exact same time. I'm just not sure. I'm looking forward to it, though.
That's how you are every episode, I feel.
It is. It is. Because you're steering this ship. So we'll never know what happens next, and we'll never know what comes out of my mouth until I've said it. And then you delete it. But anyway.
The end. We'll see y'all next week on The Heart of Money. Hey folks, if you found today's episode valuable and you want to learn how you can take the next step to gaining complete control of your money, I have a free resource called The 6 Secrets to Healthy Money Conversations with Your Spouse. This guide will help you learn how to better communicate with your spouse around finances so you can begin working as a team to gain complete control of your money. You can access it for free with your email at freedommoneycoach.com/moneyguide. That's freedommoneycoach.com/moneyguide.